relation to transport. Has everyone had a chance, and Sid will run through his slides, has everyone had a chance to have a look at the map? Haven't seen that? It should be on SharePoint. You just want to download that as well. Well, I might just hand over to you, Sid, and we'll share the PowerPoint presentation. Matty will transfer that over now. Yeah, from the beginning. Yeah. Screen. Sorry, yep. Well, there we go. Right. Sid, it's all yours. You might have a lag.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Andrew. So today we'll be focusing on the 22-23 budget, but primarily the operating budget in terms of recurrent expenditure and income that occurs year after year. This won't be focusing on one-off projects, but operating and capital. So in terms of process, similar to previous years, budget managers were asked to develop their budgets, taking into account a review of all budget lines and looking at using zero-based budgeting principles across budget lines. What that helped to do was determine base costs of services. All budgets started at zero and then they were built up from there. Any justification provided for all budget lines. The revised LTFB 23 to 32, which is currently out for public consultation, was used as a base and also used to set some targets around the budget. All budget managers were asked to maintain current levels of service unless they were varied by a service level review or council decision. The next step was once the budgets had been developed, CMT reviewed and discussed each budget line by line with budget managers and adjusted them up or down accordingly. If they were unable to justify the expenditure, they were cut. The next steps in the process, there'll be elected members workshops, which is the first one being tonight, followed by public consultation during May 22 if council endorses the budget for public consultation at the May council meeting, and then if all goes well, adoption at a special council meeting on the 29th of June 2022.
So I'd have to activate that again. Can you use the
of both?
Can you just drive up?
What's the next one?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yep, that's it. In terms of setting the budget, there were a number of challenges and pressures flowing on from similar challenges and pressures that we experienced while updating the LTFB. Things like financial sustainability in line with the LTFB, making sure we're there or thereabouts. COVID-19 short-term impacts in terms of the impacts on bush camping and caravan parks. One-off grant stimulus that the grants keep on rolling in. Ratepayer capacity to pay, increased capital renewal spending, always trying to do that. Deteriorating assets, in particular the HDS report, which we talked about when we looked at the revised LTFB. Price increases beyond CPI, to name a few: waste management, construction materials, property valuations, and fuel. The cost of maintaining a suitable and competent workforce to be able to deliver these outcomes. Increased compliance and regulation from both state and federal governments. Extraordinary items, one-off projects, and so forth. The ability to increase fees and charges. State government price increases and cost shifting, technological advances, and also environmental impacts. In terms of the parameters that we worked with to set the budget, they were based on the revised LTFB. operating deficit of 1.8 million or thereabouts, operating surplus ratio of minus 5.33%, net financial liabilities ratio of 23.1%, asset renewal funding ratio of 45%. Now that's quite low, but that's driven by a high spend required compared to our AMPs on roads in the vicinity of 20 million. Of course, we don't have that kind of money. So what we've done is, as per the LTFB, we've looked at the 10-year average, and as long as we're over 100% for that ratio over 10 years, we're okay with that. Capital renewal and replacement, allocating at least 11.55 million across the budget. New and upgraded capital funding of 255k, closing cash position of about 2.9 million, and borrowings of 756,000 for the one-off price project. That is 50% grant funded and 50% council funded. CPI that we used was around 2.5%. In terms of the nuts and bolts, I'll be going through all the recurrent expenditure and income that we get year on year. It excludes one-off projects, which we will talk about at the next workshop, both operating and capital. And we've tried to maintain a budget that's business as usual as much as possible. Just a snapshot of operating income. So along the left, you've got all the different types of operating income that we get. The biggest one being rates, of course, approximately 70% of council's entire income. You'll notice there that there's a overall rates, including service charges, increasing of 3.9% compared to the current budget, and compared to the LTFB, it's less than 1%. Won't go through line by line, just the big ticket items there. Obviously, user charges, majority of it coming from caravan parks, bush camping, and tourism-related activity. That's an increase of 60k or 1.3% to the LTFB, and I'll explain why a bit later. Grant subsidies and contributions is a big decrease compared to the current budget, and that's because there was a one-off grant funded project that's now been removed. All right, we'll go to the next. Overall.
There you go. I'll just, councillors, if any questions as we go through, put your hand up. We'll onto the side of the screen.
Overall, in terms of budgeted income, just under $34 million, which is 1.2% less than the current adopted budget, and less within 0.6% of the LTFB. So we'll go into the different types of incomes. First up, general rates. Councillors will remember that during the LTFB discussion, we looked at what the rate increases were going to be. In 22-23, we're proposing total general rates of 19.95 million. This excludes service charges. That's an increase of 3.5% or 680,000 compared to current year's rates. That's in line with the LTFB. So the 3.5 is made up of 2.5% increase funded by all ratepayers and 1% additional rate increase funded by primary production ratepayers over and above the 2.5%. And that 1% increase which equals approximately 193,000, will fund the replacement and upgrade of unsealed roads intersections as per the HGS Australia report and the priority 1 and priority 2 risks identified in that report.
So just on that, Andre had a report back on the HGS report at the May meeting. Andre?
That's correct.
Okay, just to reiterate the impact of that additional 1%, there's approximately 2,843 primary production rating assessments. So the 193,000 divided by that 2,843 is equals about $69 approximately over and above any other rate increase in 22-23. The rate modelling that'll be given to you in a couple of weeks will confirm the exact impact. In terms of looking at the service charges, so first up, CWMS. So we've got 17 CWMS operations. The occupied charge currently is $5.36. We're proposing that it go up to $5.47, which is an increase of just over 2% or $11. That's for the occupied, and for the vacant, $8 increase of 2%. That's all of this is based on SCOSA forecast recovery requirements and using the LGA 20-year pricing model that we use to calculate this. We're still not forecast recovery, but a few years ago, council made the decision to increase that steadily rather than a hike to get right up to forecast recovery. Based on the modelling, it's showing that in 3031 there'll be no more increases from 3031, and we'll achieve break-even or surplus in about 13 years' time. In terms of total income, it's a 2.5% or $41,000 increase compared to 21-22. Water supply, we bring in total 180k in income. We are proposing that there'd be a $4 increase to the annual service charge, just under 2%. And again, it's based on LGA pricing, using the LGA 20-year model and principles of forecast recovery as stipulated by SCOSA. Waste collection and disposal. So again, taking into account price increases driven by rise and fall in the contract for labour, fuel, materials, etc. The average tonnages, including any growth in that. The SA Government Solid Waste Levy increase, the normal recycling charges increase, prior years over and under recovery, and any staff costs, direct and indirect, all of that is included in a model, which then spits out what service charge should be. Councils will note that the last 3 years we've kept the service charge the same due to a significant over recovery in 18 because of the change in contract. I guess now the ongoing cumulative cost increases that we've been able to bear are now catching up. Hence, we're proposing the 3-bin charge go up by $18 or 8.3%, and the 2-bin charge go up by $16 or 9.4%. The next slide shows us a bit of a trend on where the service charges, what they've done over the last 9 or 10 years. So you'll notice that they were right up to around $262 at their highest. The last 3 years have been maintained at $217 for the 3-bin, and now we're proposing a slight increase. Landscape levy, again, we haven't been told of the exact number. We've forecast a 2% increase so that the forecast payment is 1.19 million. That is an increase from 1.16 million paid in this year. It's calculated on the capital value of individual assessments, and the amount we raise includes the amount to be paid to the board, plus any rates and rebates and remissions that we provide to ratepayers. Statutory charges income, roughly just under 400,000. We're proposing a 4.4% increase in total income of 16,000. Just the major ones to talk about here, basically septic tank applications and inspections. Due to the boom in the building boom, that has gone substantially, and it's likely to keep going up. So that's why we've increased the budget again. In terms of user charges, we're bringing roughly about 4.5 million. Majority of it comes from caravan parks, council managed caravan parks. We are hoping to forecast bring in 3.25 mil in 22-23, which is an increase of 2% or 65,000 compared to this year. A couple of caravan, Port Rickaby, we have had to reduce the forecast compared to this year, but all the other parks we've either maintained the forecast or increased the forecast. In terms of leased caravan parks, we're expecting, because of the increase in occupancy, we expect an increase of $27,000 and 9%. The other major one we talked about is bush camping. Of course, council have had the presentation of bush camping. We've increased that budget 47%, but at the same time, costs have gone up a bit as well, and that's driven by the increased occupancy. In terms of grants, subsidies and contributions, the biggest variation here is the one-off grant for regional commodity and freight roads. That was budgeted in 21-22. That's been removed, hence the big drop in grants and contributions. I will point out that, as has been pointed out on a number of occasions, the Grants Commission General Purpose Grant will see most likely another 5%, if not more, a decrease. We build that in for the next 4 years, with 22-23 being the second year. At the same time, those words in red are straight out of some communication we received from the Grants Commission, and it basically says that we'll continue to experience a cut of between 1% and 10% for the next 4 to 5 years, which is roughly about 60k that we won't get each year. In terms of other programs, the Art Activation Strategy, second year of that program is in the budget as well, and roaster recovery has been maintained at this stage at the same level. Reimbursements and other income, not really too much to talk about here, small compared to all the other income streams. The biggest one being the ATO fuel rebate for the reimbursements, and in terms of other income, the art exhibition, which has been budgeted for. Moving on to expenditure, in terms of total operating expenditure, we're proposing $35.4 million in operating expenditure for 22-23, employee costs including the labour overhead, but excluding any amount allocated to capital, is roughly about 10.3 million. On the next couple of slides, I'll show you what the actual increase in employee costs is, exclusive of labour overheads, both operating and capital. With comparing the budgeted employee costs to LTFP, we're within 1% of what we budgeted. In terms of materials, contracts and other being our biggest expenditure, we're proposing $13.7 million, which is 34k more than the current budget, this year's budget, and 142,000 or 1% less than LTFP. Depreciation remains the same as what was proposed in the LTFP, and finance costs, you'll notice, are a little bit higher than the current year and LTFP, because we've recently locked in one of the 2 loans that we were meant to draw down this year, and the interest rate, since we forecasted in the LTFP, and the actual interest rate we've got now has increased. So moving on to employee costs, this looks at salaries, wages and super, both operating and capital, without any overheads. So the total we're proposing for 22-23 is 10.87 million, compared to 21-22, a current year budget of 10.5. That's an increase of 320,000, or just under 3%. And to note that the FTE is increased by 0.89, and that can be primarily attributed to 0.42 for a trainee that was employed in November 2021 for 12 months, and 0.45 for the art exhibition officer, which is budgeted every second year. In terms of what the variation of 320k is made up of, includes the art exhibition officer for around 40k, the trainee for around 18k, the 2.5% proposed EBA increase for ASU and AWU. That's the process is happening at the moment. The extra 0.5% in legislated super increase that's required from 1 July. Any incremental increases and reclassifications as per the EBA, and to note that the total salaries and super amount is within 19k of the LTFP forecast, so 19k less than what we forecasted in the LTFP. Looking at other employee-related costs, income protection insurance, no change there. Workers' comp, increase of about 7% or 20,000. That's related to the rate that we were using to calculate the payment, that increase. So that meant the overall workers' comp increased, and it's also a cumulative impact of the salary and wage variations showed you on the previous slide. Fringe benefits tax, about a 5% or 7k increase due to vehicle price increases. Protective clothing, a 24% increase is again a lot of staff turnover and adhering to EVA requirements being the reason for that. The next few slides are quite heavy in terms of information. I won't go through all the lines on every slide. Basically, the next few slides look at our biggest expenditure in terms of materials, contracts, and other costs. So I'll just pick out a couple of lines on each and just go through that. Happy to take any questions on the other lines if needed. Just looking through on this one, IT consultants, they're the one-off IT projects related to all our security audits, internal and external audit remediation actions, especially leading on from the Auditor General findings, website and intranet enhancements, leading on from our ERP replacement project that's currently underway, and a $25,000 one-off major upgrade of Council's records management system. The other big ticket item on there is caravan park management, which is obviously related to the income we get for the caravan park, directly related, and that's what's paid to the park managers based on their retainer, commission plus KPI payments as per their contracts. In terms of cleaning, so cleaning has increased 6% or 28,000. Majority of that 28,000, 19,000 of it is for additional cleaning for bush camping toilets, and the rest. So those bush camping toilets are either newly constructed or previously cleaned by community groups. So those toilets are included as well, plus bush camping toilet additional cleaning, and the balance is for CPI increases to our current contract. There's nothing else to talk about on that one. That's significant. So I'll move on to the next one. IT licensing includes all our licensing and cloud-based services for information technology. The increase is primarily due to application whitelisting and multi-factor authentication. Again, two requirements out of the Auditor General review of local government. And just to highlight that this could be further impacted, this entire budget line, once after the digital strategy, which you had an update on last week. In terms of subscriptions, the majority of them come from caravan parks for their booking systems and so forth. Then there's a couple of big ones in there for the LGA, Legatus, and various other subscriptions, both staff accreditations, memberships, and other procurement and contract templates, etc. Diesel and petrol is an interesting one. What I've done is maintain the budget amount same as this year. We're confident enough at this stage that there is enough contingency to absorb a short-term price increase. If it continues to, if the price of petrol and diesel continues to stay at the levels throughout the year, we'll have to monitor that and adjust accordingly.
Last night's announcement
with the fuel excise. So yeah, hopefully that's a short-term relief, but again, how long that goes yet to be seen. So at this stage, we're confident we can manage with that budget.
Yep.
Plant, machinery, vehicle parts and materials. You'll note that there's a big cut in that. That's not exactly a cut. We've just taken that money and reallocated it to the contracts line, which reflects the level of repairs and maintenance we're doing externally as compared to what we're doing internally. That line there purely talks about internal repairs and maintenance. Just picking through advertising, virtually the same. In terms of community grants, we've still got the 100k community grants cap, 20k business grants, and 15k AGL grants, which are fully reimbursed to council. In terms of contributions, so we've got 78k for Care in Motion, or YP Community Transport, 54k for that should be YP Tourism, 34k for the RDA, and the additional item in 22-23 being the local government elections, the $52,000 that are spent on that. The reduction out of that is a 19k joint planning alliance that was budgeted in 21-22, but is not proceeding. It's been taken out in 22-23. In terms of electricity, we are likely to see some savings due to a new contract commencing from 1 July of 2023. So we've factored in about 6% or $35,000 worth of savings. In terms of water, there's likely to be a slight increase. Gas is likely to increase quite a bit with the current situation and current pricing, and also the caravan park's increased occupancy. Again, we'll monitor that, and hopefully it won't go up too much more. If it does, we might have to make some. In terms of our telecommunications budget, so landlines, mobile phones, internet, and the wider network, virtually unchanged at this stage. There could be a possible variation, again, depending on a full review of our telecommunications and network requirements as our contracts expire, and of course with the implementation of the digital strategy once that's finalised. Levies paid to government includes a landscape levy primarily, and ESL, and just other couple of small levies. Public liability insurance has been increasing around 5% mark year on year, hence we've reflected that historical trend. Asset insurance, number of donated assets and newly constructed assets now included, which has pushed it up to more than just CPI, and general increase in cost of insurance as well due to weather events and so forth. Plant and vehicle insurance, that's gone up. We have forecast that to go up 12%, which is a little bit higher than what we like, but as we are replacing older plant with newer plant and machinery, the higher replacement costs are in that increase. The next set of so what I've done with materials, contracts, and other budget lines is I've given you a total on materials, and I've just given you the major items out of that category. In terms of materials that we spend, we forecast to spend about $922,000 for next year, and virtually unchanged. The major things to talk about there, look at, will be the caravan parks, all the materials they need to run the caravan parks. It's the traffic control signs and posts, virtually stayed the same. And CWMS operations, again, no change. We spent about $134,000 in materials to run the CWMS operations. Moving along, still on materials, again, for maintenance of parks and reserves, crown lands, weed control, etc. $134,000 forecast. Sealed roads maintenance, $145,000, slight increase there to account for additional materials and the cost of materials. And unsealed roads, $15,000. Depot materials, plant and tools, $65,000. In terms of other expenditure, small amount, major item being caravan parks. Looking at contractual services, so all the services that we contract out. The art activation strategy, the expense side of things is in there, as I mentioned earlier. Asset management expenditure has gone up by 39%, but $21,000, but that's purely because we need to do building assets revaluation. Happens every 3 or 4 years, so that's coming, we've had to fill that in. We spend approximately $75,000 on maintenance of footpaths and stormwater, including disabled access and related projects. In terms of that, in terms of IT projects and support, you'll notice there's a 9% or $54,000 decline. That's reflective of the IT strategic plan and the second year of funding for the ERP replacement program. Councillors will remember that this year there's approximately $550,000, of which any unspent money will be rolled over to the following year, and then next year we're forecasting or budgeting for $495,000 as per the IT strat plan. Together, that will form the basis of what we go out to market with and what the tender comes in at. Other than that, in IT, there's really no change. That budget line basically funds all the ongoing tech support for our record systems, phone systems, GIS, authority network, info council, etc. We'll move on to the next slides. The big ticket item there is refuse collection and disposal, so $2.3 million, $100,000 increase. As I mentioned before, the expenditure hasn't gone up, it's only gone up by 4%, whereas the income has gone up quite substantially. It's because last 3 years we've been absorbing the increase to the expenditure because we had over-recovered 4 years ago on the income side of things. Transfer station management contract is virtually no increase. We're confident that we can cover any increases within that current forecast. CWMS operations, repairs and maintenance, primarily the pump house. We've budgeted $161,000 for that. Jetty pylons, kept the replacement and maintenance at $150,000. The next line, dredging. So dredging has gone up by $78,000 or 147%. You'll remember that during the LTFP, I mentioned that starting in 2022-23, we included a $100,000 allowance for dredging projects or dredging work each year for the next 10 years. So what we've done is just included a full $100,000. The current year, 21-22, only had about $20,000 in it. That's it. Halls and council buildings, repairs and maintenance. There was a one-off project for Pointy Point salt dam, hence the reduction of 12K. Otherwise, it's just a normal budget for repairs and maintenance. Looking through there, the big ticket items, parks and reserves maintenance, just under 100,000. Unsealed roads maintenance, 76,000. 70,000 of that is for roadside vegetation control, which we allocate every year. It's an annual allowance. Plant machinery and vehicles external repairs. I mentioned a couple of slides ago that we'd cut one budget to reallocate it. So I've taken it out of the internal servicing and repairs and put it here for the external servicing and repairs of our plant machinery and vehicles to match up with the actuals. On this page here, so pigeon eradication, we've maintained the budget of 10,000, and the new budget that we've included now is also the cormorant eradication, which is a new service in 22-23. What else? And the last line, the caravan parks, council operated caravan parks, a number of contractual services to help run the caravan parks. And the reason it's been reduced by 44% is because there was a number of one-off projects that haven't been included as yet. They will be discussed in a separate workshop, and then they'll come in here. So that was materials, contracts and other. Depreciation, as I've said during the LTFP discussions, same as what the LTFP had, but slight increase of 2.6% increase to what they adopted for this year. And that's based on the 2021 year-end actual result and forecasting, including new assets that council's acquired and will be capitalised over the next few years. In terms of finance costs, interest loans, 10% increase to this financial year and also to the LTFP, but that's again based on the new loans we'll be taking out and the increased interest rates compared to when we actually forecasted them. That was all the expenditure. Looking now at the caravan parks funding model. So this model, council adopted this model, I believe, about 18 months ago. The first time it was put in place was in this financial year, in 21-22, for the first time. So basically, in a nutshell, the model requires that any operating income, less operating expenditure for the parks, less principal loan repayments, less a 10% dividend back to council, which is a 10% of the operating income, will, I guess, leave a pot of money which can then be spent on projects, both operating and capital, for caravan parks. And the reason the model was put in place was so that the caravan parks wouldn't be competing for general revenue with all the other operating and capital projects, just to simplify the process a bit. So based on that calculation, after funding all the operating costs and all the costs for the caravan parks coordinator and the 100,000 that council approved a few months ago to undertake Port Rickaby water infrastructure upgrades. The bucket has 379,000, or just a little bit more than 379,000, which can now be spent on caravan park projects, both operating and capital. Just reconciling back to the LTFP. So the LTFP operating bottom line forecasted 1.779 million. The budget for 2023 at this stage is at 1.541 million, which leaves a difference or a surplus of $238,000, which can be attributed to additional income from waste collection that we underestimated in the LTFP, other revenue that we had not forecast in the LTFP, and some overs and unders in expenditure worth $34,000. One thing to note is that this $238,000 is will be used towards looking at one-off operating projects that are yet to be considered. They will be brought to elected members in the next week or so, and then we'll balance that up against this 238,000 and provide a full reconciliation at the next workshop. So in terms of next steps, we're finalising the operating budget now. You've seen the recurrent tonight. Next week, if all goes to plan, you will see all the capital projects that are included as part of a balanced budget, and all the operating projects, all the caravan park projects, and also all the unfunded that didn't get in due to the limited funds available. Elected member workshops in April and one in May, if required. We'll talk about capital and operating projects, rating model, and fees and charges. May 22 council meeting will be where council will consider a preferred rating model and also consider for endorsement the draft annual business plan, budget, fees and charges for public consultation. Following that public consultation for a minimum of 21 days will happen in May and June. And then at the June 22 council meeting, council will consider any written submissions and also hear any verbal submissions should someone make one. And at this stage, the plan is that on the 29th of June, which is the 5th Wednesday in June 2022, special council meeting to set the rates, adopt the valuations, adopt the annual business plan, budget, fees and charges. In terms of public consultation, same as last year, we will advertise on council's website, Facebook page, advertise twice in the Waipori Country Times, email Progress Association separately. There will be an opportunity for public to provide written submissions at the June council meeting. We will set aside 1 hour for that purpose at that meeting, and then all going to plan adoption and rate setting at the special council meeting on the 29th of June 2022. And that's the presentation, so happy to take any questions.
All right, got Leanne. You just take the slide off.
Just regarding the caravan park funding model, and you can see which caravan parks have made a lot of money, like Port Vincent have taken in net result of 336,000, and then say Black Point minus 13,000. How is that money divided up? So available for operating and capital projects is 379,000. How's it divided up between the caravan parks? Is that based on, you know, like someone's earned more, so they get more money, or?
So it's definitely not based on how much you earn, it's how much you burn, I suppose. It's based on priority around work health and safety, risk, and merit, of course. I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah. So if it's a project that's vital in terms of work health and safety and risk, of course, goes to the top of the line, top of the pile, and then of course, like Ben said, merit, and also how I guess that project fits into the overall strategy for the caravan parks.
Because Black Point has made a negative for quite a few years now, hasn't it?
Realistically,
Yeah.
break even or loss.
questionable whether, you know, like as in business, is that worth putting lots of money into or it's worth it for tourism? What's the thoughts on Black Point?
Yes, I guess we look at all the caravan parks. You can look at them individually, but if you look at it as a total business, they're still bringing people into the community. There's still economic development around, even though they're making a loss. They're bringing the flow-on impact that council can't necessarily measure that goes into the community is still there. So I guess there is that argument as well.
And Yorktown, you could say, you know, look, it doesn't make money, or if it does, it's only a small amount. It does provide a service for people, trades, I don't know, nurses coming into work at the hospital, for example. Now, if we didn't have that, we're actually providing a service for that town.
Yeah, because Yorktown is a different kettle of fish, really, compared to like Black Point. You think Black Point would earn quite a bit of money. You wouldn't think it would make a negative there, would you? As a business.
You'd think that.
Yeah.
I think
It's not to scale. It's too small. And
Okay.
a lot of the parks, even at Yorktown, where the money comes in, is in the cabins.
Yeah. And so that's where it is worth spending money on the Port Vincent Caravan Park because the business is a booming caravan park, isn't it?
it's performing well. I mean, you can clearly see with those that are performing well. A few common strengths within all of those parks, really, from location and marketing initiatives, which could be adopted by others, but those are two key contributors, I would have thought.
Right, thank you.
Okay, Adam. Yes, mute there.
Just going on from Leanne's question, is there a reason why Rickaby's down 66,000?
In a couple of reasons. The forecast for this year, I think, wasn't done correctly. When we had the changeover, there was a lot of unknowns, and I think just got mixed up in that. And I think it was a little bit higher. It was set a lot higher than we expected. So we've had to cut that back.
Has it been tracking comparatively to the previous owners, or has it actually increased from them, or we just don't have the figures?
It's definitely increased from the previous owners. It's just that I think we got the figures mixed up a little bit in the changeover, and not knowing some of the components of what the income was, and we've tidied it up a little bit as well. So I think what we've got for next year is a truer reflection of where we think we will be.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Adam. Yeah, Naomi? Yes.
Did I see you had 40,000 in the budget for the art exhibition coordinator? And is that going to get pushed back a year if we're delaying it a year?
Yeah, well, it's in with some it's in with income and some expenses.
Yeah.
We did talk about that today. A report will be coming to the May meeting. Obviously, Ben's got a little bit of work to do. If it does come out, it will have a small positive cash savings. Look, I'll let Sid explain.
Yeah, so we've budgeted for the full income and expenditure, including the FTE, the part-time FTE. It has a net impact of about $53,000 expense. So if that comes out, we'll just rebudget next year. So it'll have a small impact on this year, but then it'll have an equal impact on next year. So not major.
And I guess we still haven't made that decision, so we'll leave it in at this point. But we'll know before we adopt the budget.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Anthony or Roger? Mayor, Kristen, Michael, John's finally joined us. Richard, Tanya. Okay, all right. Well, if that's okay, If everyone can just pull up on their screen, SharePoint, copy the proposed capital works budget. Have we got it there to try? We'll try and share it with you. Not sure of the quality that we'll get, so just bear with us. Then I'll hand over to Andre to walk us through that one. On YouTube.
Emails. It's that one, the one next to the PDF next to the EM.
Proposed
in the middle
capital
of the
works,
screen.
yeah, PDF.
It's just a,
Yeah, you got to watch the screen. That's got a lag.
Yeah.
Just bear with us, councillors. Matty Luke's first time in on the big seat.
that's it.
Got the
Up
L's.
there.
He's no Stuart, that's right. Stewie's watching at home, just smiling away. If you can try and make that a bit bigger, full screen.
That is full. That's kind of now. And you want to go back up to the full screen again, Matty.
All right, so while we're just playing around with that, Andre,
Can we zoom in, please? Please, to see us 38%, just because that plus.
Sign bar. Up, sign. Hit both sides, that's 2 arrows. Yeah. So this one. There it is. Okay. If you listen to Zoom.
Just for.
Can we just go to the screen?
Just go through.
To the top right while you close out. Just minimise it first.
You know what?
Yeah, that's okay.
Where did you see it to?
So your top right, your close button, so close to the next one across, full screen,
No,
See up under the X?
right at the very top right.
Yeah, I can't get to it with this.
it's not going to move. All right.
I will get to it. Hang on, here we go.
That's it.
There we go.
All right.
There we go. Now we're there. Sorry, guys.
Okay, just.
Which part do you want to scroll to, Andre?
Sorry?
Which part do you want to scroll down to?
Got 100% there. If we just go to 75%, so you can see in the middle there how there's a plus and minus button.
Yep. There we go.
That's it. That's probably okay. Just scroll down a bit more. Okay. We can just, don't worry about the heading, just scroll down a bit more. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
That's right.
All right,
You're right.
Andre.
Okay, councils and community. So we've got a draft budget for the transport capital works for next year at the present time being at 8.1 million or 8.16 million. And you'll see there that we've got a series of projects listed 1 to 11, which is inclusive of patch sheeting, which we've done in the past. I'll talk in a moment about what we're trying to achieve in patch sheeting for the benefit of the community that might be watching. And then you've got down at the bottom left corner, you'll see that there's a title called Other Projects. Now, I'll start with the issue of just how we come up with our funding, I suppose our prioritisation more than anything. What is important is that when you look at asset management with Rose, that you try and renew your asset 100%, otherwise you're creating a backlog. And particularly with expensive assets like sealed roads, we should be 100% renewing those every year. You'll recall this current financial year, we were funding seals at the rate of whatever it was, I think the budget was close enough to 300,000. And we've previously had inspections by third parties who've indicated that we're effectively underfunding our road seal network. And I brought up to councillors in June of last year that we need to spend a whole lot more money over the next 5 years in our reseal program. So what we've gone and done is, first of all, it's not as if we've just gone and said, okay, we're going to go and create another 1.5 million or 1.8 million dollars. We're just going to create that out of thin air and slug the community with a whole lot of extra rates. No, what we've done is we've looked at prioritising right from the get-go at saying seals should be your number one. Renew your asset 100% and start to claw back this backlog in the seal area before your seals fall apart, and then you have to go and totally rehabilitate the roads. So you'll see in the other projects, councillors, that we've got up from 300,000 this year to 1.85 million for road reseals. You'll see that we've got what we're calling rubble raising 300,000. Really, that's councillors looking ahead into subsequent years, and you're going to see for the next 3 to 5 years that there's going to be an item in there that's effectively crushing material, basically creating material from council pits that are particularly in the southern section of the LGA, where we have reasonable materials that can be used on our roads. We'll effectively go in, we'll allocate a certain amount of money to crushing materials ahead for the next financial year so that we can do things, do the roadworks at a material level a lot more cost effectively. The other item that you see there under other projects is what we call the unsealed road intersection upgrades. Now that 193,000 is a drop in the bucket. It's basically funded, I think, 1% of rates, which is really about, it's really the farming sector that's getting the benefit of this 193,000. Right across our network, we've got problems with a lot of intersections. They are either unsafe or they're not up to scratch, right, for the heavy vehicles that we're putting across them. And I will bring a report to council in May, as was indicated earlier, from HDS, which prioritises all of these issues, puts some costs around them, and I suppose flags a way forward to still allowing access to a degree, or alternatively, if we have to rationalise our access, what that might mean otherwise. So, councillors, other projects, they're a number one priority from an asset management perspective. When you go and look at the balance of the budget, those items 1 to 11 above, right, that's what we've settled on. And I'll talk to those in a minute, but if I can just scroll down, please, Maddie. You'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, see how we've got there elected member, community member requests, and I've got in brackets there unfunded. In terms of our process, that's how it's landed at this point in time from a staff assessment viewpoint. I just want to say to you councillors that what we do when we look at coming up with a list, right, that we recommend for the following year's capital works, we look at a number of things. One is we start with just a draft program that comes out of our Conquest asset database that looks at when the roads were last done. We look at our asset management plan in terms of the road's relative priority. Is it a high priority road that's got a fair amount, a considerable amount of use? Does it have a high percentage of heavy vehicle use? Does it have an AADT, or an average annual daily traffic, that's probably low compared to a lot of other councils, but it's higher in the overall scheme of comparison for our LGA. So we'll look at those road priorities. We'll also, that draft list that comes out, we'll also do an inspection. Now I can say, right, with those elected member requests there, I personally inspected, what was it, Belgowan Road. I looked at that road, and I looked at the other one, Old Boundary Road. Now, bottom line, particularly with Old Boundary Road, That road is in good condition. Physically done dynamic current penetrometer testing along it to gauge, the extent of pavement material that's there already. We've looked at the widths of the road. We've looked at the AADTs and the percentage of heavy vehicles, and that road only gets, as is indicated, 32 vehicles per day, and its heavy vehicles averages out at 5.4. Now, we've got many other roads that are multiples of those heavy vehicle percentages, and those roads that we've got for elected member applications or requests, they're all low priority roads. So purely from a prioritisation point of view, what we've done is we've said, okay, before we go and spend money on these low priority roads, serious amounts of money, we need to be getting up to scratch the higher priority and the medium priority roads. So that's why you will see, so let me just go back up, Maddie. Those items 1 to 11, right? You'll see in brackets there's a H or an M next to those roads that have been identified. That means they're either a high priority road for H or medium priority road M. And that comes out of the classification system that we've got in the transport management plan, asset management plan. So councillors, look, all of those roads have been inspected for condition. They have been costed on what needs doing. And that's where we've landed. What you will notice is that the patch sheeting is considerably less. There have been higher amounts of money allocated to patch sheeting in the past, but remember when I started just a little bit earlier this presentation, I mentioned that we've got to look at prioritisation, and our prioritisation has to be with our seals first and foremost. What this patch sheeting allocation does is deal with CSRs, it deals with the lower priority roads to the extent that we can. We can't create, short of upping rates big time, we can't create money out of thin air, so we've got to look at where we can manoeuvre, and patch sheeting is one of those areas. So those roads there, that's the list that we've landed at. Can I say from a strategic point of view, and this is probably where I'll finish up before taking questions, is that council is doing, or certainly the assets team, we're doing what we believe is a continuous improvement process where we're looking to do things more efficiently. You'll see, the community will see that out on the roads, particularly up in the north, we've started to use materials, or we've changed the specifications such that the materials that we're putting out on the road should last longer than what has been previously put out on the roads in terms of road resheeting. We're looking to use more of what's called stabilisation into the future, and that's whereby we will seek to stabilise, as part of the renewal process, the existing road materials on the road, rather than rather than truck a whole lot of material over poor quality roads, destroy 10 kilometres of road just to fix 1 kilometre. Now, that's something that is going to be a work in progress. It's not going to take shape this year, but certainly into next financial year and onwards, you will see more of that. When it comes to using more cost-effective materials, right, I did indicate that we'll be making more use of our pits down in the south. We've done materials checking, or checking of the quality of the materials, and with the addition of some stabilants and the like, strengthening stabilants I'm talking about, we are looking to minimise the transport, right, to the roads that we are looking to rehabilitate into the future. And that's where most of the cost is in the cartage of materials. So the other thing that we're looking to do, and you'll probably see this in those lines on the map there, you'll notice that there's a tendency to focus on east-west linkages right? As opposed to, and these east-west linkages are more to try and connect into the existing state sealed network, right? We want to try and push the traffic onto the state sealed network, not duplicate the state sealed network with north-south, multiple north-south corridors to just facilitate shortcuts, because our road network, as you know, 3,890 kilometres is just way too big for this LGA to properly fund. So at the rate we're going, councillors, we've got to be strategic. We've got to do things in order of priority. And this is our first pass draft at that. So I might just leave it at that and open the floor to questions.
Thanks, Andre. I've got Mayor Braun.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about Daly Head Road, number 15. It's down as a medium use road, but I just wonder if it's become a high use road in recent times. And we'll be doing some cost estimates on what needs to be done there to give us an idea of what that looks like.
Yes, look, from what I understand, I've seen the plans. There has been some plans done at Daly Head Road, specifically the what that item 15 there is just referring to an intersection. Let me just slide the. So you'll see Daly Head Road is item 15 is that over on the left-hand side of the screen. There's a little yellow road there on the west coast. So can people see it's just right underneath that label, other projects, if you go right down. So about halfway up the west coast side of the I suppose the leg of our peninsula. That's the locality, but you are right, Mayor Braun. We know that some of these tourist routes like Lighthouse Road, etc., they're getting a lot more use. What the situation is that light vehicles don't so much destroy roads. It's heavy vehicles that tend to destroy roads. And what we've noticed too is that, there is going to have to be more money put into these tourist roads. Now, we haven't looked at that as yet from a transport point of view, transport management plan review point of view, but in short, this intersection has to be costed. I know there was a number of 30,000 just chucked in there at, suggested by the community, but there's three things that are outstanding. One is that there needs to be native veg looked at in terms of the issues there. There needs to be acquisition of land. And the actual costs of fixing up the intersection in question will be multiples of that 30,000, just looking at plans that I've seen. So, look, when it's got uncosted there, yes, there is costing to be done, but it's not just a simple 30,000 will fix it, because it won't.
All right, is that all?
Thanks for that.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Thoughts? Anthony?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just I understand what you're saying there about that one at Gleeson's or Daly Heads there. It's but it is actually dangerous. If you've been to have a look at it, it's quite a hairpin corner, and it's bordering on dangerous. So, it's well worth a look at. I realise it's going to cost a bit of money, but it is quite a dangerous corner. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Any other questions or comments at this point? No. No hands, no. No other, no. I mean, just on that, we did have a bit of a discussion today. I think we can get on board, Andre, that we'll definitely be looking at some sort of scope of works. Probably obviously not this financial year, but next.
Yeah, look, we have plans for Daly Head. It's just, I'm hearing you, Anthony, when you say the intersection's dangerous, but I can tell you that when I bring this report to council on the HDS report, you're going to realise very quickly that there's absolutely many intersections across our LGA that are being used by HVs now that don't have the sight distance, that are problematic, that are equally as dangerous. And it's going to be a case of, well, we can't fix everything. People have got to, if we're going to keep the network open to heavy vehicles, some of them we've just got to deal with. Others, we may well just have to say, look, if we can't deal with them, our consulting engineers are saying you shouldn't have it gazetted as a heavy vehicle route, period, right? So I would be suggesting to you, this is just one of many localities where you've got problems with sight distance and the like, and really you're relying on the community to drive to the conditions. Yes, the sight distance is, poor. Yes, it's, not an ideal intersection in terms of, how it's not an ideal T intersection, but I can assure you there's plenty of others. So it's just going to be one of those things. After the HDS report, look, I'll get some sense from the councillors ultimately as to how they want to move forward into the next financial year. And as I said a little bit earlier, that 193,000 in dealing with intersections is a drop in the bucket. It'll be a matter of just how do we want to deal with things. And look, if you say into the future we need to spend more on these tourist roads, right? It's a matter of where's the money coming from? You can't, somewhere I've either got to do less in another area unless the funding bucket grows bigger.
Okay, thank you, Andre.
Thank you.
Anthony? Yes.
Oh, that'll be an ideal chance to up the bush camping rate.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that this will probably be, with that intersection be included in the HDS report? Probably not sure. Okay. Look, we can include that in terms of the May discussions, Anthony, if that's all right. Everyone's comfortable with that? Okay. All right. Is there any other questions or comments about what staff have presented today? Everyone's okay. Look, if you've got, Adam.
Just like to say, I'm pleased to see, I think it's number 10, which is that short section of Poinsettia Road, that in the last couple of years has been, it's actually on the screen at the moment, at the top of the bottom of the foot. I just actually had a farmer there recently suggest to me that he'd seen anywhere up to 50 vehicles in an afternoon going on that section of road. So that's the end of North Coast Road. And the well done work on Brutus Road, I think it is at the bottom end of it. It's only a short period or a short section, but driving it, there's 3 sections along there that actually floods and gets quite sketchy at about 60 k's now. So pleased to see that one. And the only comment I'd say on Daly Head Road is we spent probably $500,000 doing 6 k's of road up to that intersection, and then the intersection lets us down. So I'd just be keen to see the costings for that, and we can have that conversation later, I think.
Yep. No worries. Thank you, Adam. All right. Well, if that's all, councillors, look, thank you for your time and attendance tonight. And any questions or anything pops up, processes, look, please contact any one of the 4 here, and more than happy to assist where we can. Have a nice night. Well, David, all right. Thanks all. Greatly appreciate it. Sorry?
I think Leanne had a question.
Is she? I can't see losing her. She's gone.
No, I think she was saying bye.
Oh, goodbye. All right. Good night, everyone. See ya.